and on time. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Thursday. We're almost at the end of the week. It's great to be with you. I'm Elysabeth Alfano, and this is the Plant-Based Business Hour. I always like to start this show and say that if we want a safe and secure future, we need a safe and secure food supply, and that is plant-based foods. And then I usually say we're going to need more than Impossible Foods and Beyond Meat. But I might have that wrong. Beyond Meat just might be able to change the world for us and do it all on their own. Let's find out. I'm bringing in Chief Growth Officer Chuck Muth of Beyond Meat. Chuck, thanks for being with me.
Well, glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
So very exciting. It's just good news from you all the time, quite frankly. So let me sing your praises. Last week, Ethan Brown at the earnings report let us know that it's been $97 million in revenue, 141 and a slightly more increase year over year. And then analysts thought it would be about 88.3 million, but you went on to beat that, of course, with 97 million. So, and this represents a positive net income as opposed to Q4 in 2019, which was a loss. And that is in coronavirus times. So I think how strong the future must look for you. It's a very exciting time. I was surprised to see these kind of results, given that food service and restaurants were down from 59% to 42%. So I'm wondering, as you guys navigate through coronavirus, how are you seeing things shake out between your restaurant business and just the grocery store business?
Well, there's been a big shift, and that's not a surprise, I think. The food service business, many of our partners and customers are struggling as we've got shutdowns throughout much of the country. Many of them are closed or just servicing through drive-thrus or pickup service or delivery service. So they are struggling. Our retail business, on the other hand, is the almost exact opposite. They're benefiting from this. Many people are eating at home right now. Just visiting my local Whole Food over the weekend, and they were very low on our burgers. And they said, well, it was Mother's Day, and we didn't expect everybody to be eating at home for Mother's Day, so we ran a little short. So there's that phenomenon. So there is a big monumental shift from the food service to the retail business, which itself has its own challenges, though, as we're trying to shift our production to meet those needs and dial back a little bit on the food service.
Well, so here in the United States, we're still grappling, of course, with coronavirus, what to do, go in, go out, et cetera. We're still working that through. But in China, and I think it's hard to talk about your growth without talking about your major advancements in China. In China, of course, most businesses are already open, and you've announced that Starbucks is going to carry 3 of your meat dishes along with OmniPork and Oatly. And I'm wondering if you're going to see production in China. You said that you would, but has that changed at all since the world remains in turmoil?
We've always viewed China as a huge opportunity. It's a large, obviously populous, 1.4 billion people living there. They a very high growth economy, very high growing middle class and wealth class there. Big animal eating country overall, not necessarily beef, but pork and chicken in particular.
Sure.
So we have always viewed China as a big opportunity. We felt Starbucks was a good first step because the type of consumer that we're going to likely appeal to initially will be the younger consumer that can afford to drink a latte and a Starbucks. So it is a very good first start. It's not like a Starbucks you see here, though. They have sit-down meals. Some of the things you're seeing are like lasagna. They're sit-down meal type of menus. We also signed on a new distributor there, Synotis. We also hired some folks on the ground there. We have very, very high hopes for China in the future, and we're investing accordingly for that, including production.
So when do you think you'll actually start producing in China? And do you have any IP concerns? Because, you're a food company, but you're also all about innovation.
Yeah, I mean, we're cautious in any event. We have a lot of trade secrets. So we are naturally cautious. We also know that there are a lot of companies, not just in China, but throughout the world, that are reverse engineering our work and trying to come up with similar type products. This is from Ethan, it's going to be like chasing a shadow because we have well over 100 food scientists. We're working on the next iteration of our products. by the time they've reverse engineered our former product, we've already moved on to something bigger and better. So we're truly an innovation company. So IP is always a concern, but it doesn't overwhelm us. We're just cautious in how we communicate and what we communicate. And we do all of our own self-production, by the way. None of our core products are produced outside of our house. We do have co-packer partners, but that's more finishing work. The core of our ingredients and product is actually produced only by our company.
And that's going to continue. So even for China, that will continue.
Yep.
Very fascinating. And I don't know if you're able to talk about this now that you're a public company. I want to make sure I stay within the boundaries, but it seems that the Chinese government is also very supportive of this, that perhaps they realize how expensive it is to have a nation eating meat and getting sick, and that there are lots of economic benefits and perhaps even a better stance in trade talks, and obviously the environmental benefit. So are you at all talking to the Chinese government?
We are not directly, but through some of our consultants over there, we are. The government has been overall supportive of the work. We are an outside company. More importantly, we're a U.S. company. But we have been very collaborative. We've tried to be very positive about the things that we're trying to accomplish over there. We have not had difficulty in registration, honestly, but a lot of that has to go back to our product itself. It's no GMOs. There's no novel ingredients. It's pretty straightforward, all natural, plant-based ingredients. So those make it a lot easier to get registration, not just in China, but other countries as well.
And I do want to talk about Europe, because you have a production plant, I think, in Holland that's going to come online in 2020 as well. But before we leave China, so much of what you've done in the United States has been, I'll say, very crafty and smart marketing. I want to make sure I get the sentiment right. Of course, your interest is in helping frontline workers in the United States and giving food to hospitals. You've done some great, generous 100,000 meals for different hospitals and workers across the United States with Plantbased, #Plantbased Party. What are you looking at for your marketing efforts in China?
Well, we'll hire a local team and a local agency. The one thing we have been very conscious of, that the Chinese consumer is very different from the Western consumer. Their diets are different. The things that they like are different. The way you communicate, the way they shop is different. I mean, they're much further along in terms of e-commerce than we are in the U.S., for instance. So, we'll work with a local agency and local teams. We're hiring a local team, as I mentioned, who are a lot more familiar with how to speak to and communicate with the Chinese consumer there.
Yeah, I think it is such an important and exciting time to see where China is going with their plant-based initiatives. But of course, obviously, Europe is as well. And Europe is quite sophisticated, particularly if you're talking about the UK in that endeavor. What made you decide on the Netherlands as a place for production?
Well, one, it's centrally located. It's a business-friendly country. And maybe most importantly, one of our import partners there is the Zandbergen Finest Meats, and it's near their facility. Actually, they're building that facility for us. And so it was a great partnership with them, and we just wanted to expand that partnership. And they made, the offer, the way we worked with them was just, good for what we were trying to accomplish. So we're very excited. It's a brand new facility, ground up. It's really, it's very automated. So it's a really nice facility.
And this actually is really key, finding that right partner. It's location, but it's also who you deal with. I mean, life is relationships, business is relationships, but finding that partner who really gets the vision and you can work with well to keep that seamless. Of course, that's so important. So in the earnings report and also on this show, Seth Goldman was on this show with Jonah about an hour before the earnings report. And then, of course, in the earnings report, Ethan was quick to talk about the price of Beyond Meat getting at parity with meat products, or perhaps even below. And he was talking about bulk pricing for grocery stores. I'm wondering if you can expand at all as to when we'll really see that.
I'm going to have a hard time giving you a definitive date. I will tell you this, though, that we have said right along that the three priorities we have in our innovation center is, number one, taste, making sure that taste continues to improve and get closer to the taste that our core consumers like. When most of our consumers are in fact meat eaters, and to make sure that they have a food that they are familiar with and comfortable eating, so it doesn't feel like a sacrifice. Secondly is the nutritionals. We are consistently working on improving those nutritionals. Our new breakfast sausage has lower fat, lower sodium, less calories, no cholesterol. So we're trying to improve our nutritionals. And the third one is price. We're trying to bring our price down to, in theory, to the levels of meat or below. And Ethan has made a personal commitment that within the next 4 years will actually be as affordable or less costly as at least one animal meat product, likely beef, by the way. And the work that we're doing both on the supply chain side as well as the innovation side is all geared toward that effort. The most recent situation where there have been these really horrific conversations around the working conditions in some of the meat processing facilities, I think, which has always been there and are really coming to light now.
Yes.
During COVID, has really opened up some opportunity for us in the sense that they've had to shut down a lot of these facilities to clean them and to create better working standards for their workers. Has caused shortages, and that in turn has caused pricing to rise in beef and animal meat. That's opened up a door for us a little bit, and in same token, we are reducing costs. So we are able to, and Ethan has made a comment around value packs. There will be value packs in many retailers in the U.S. this summer, and those value packs would be much closer to the cost of animal meat. May not be lower, but it'll be very close.
Well, I'll just riff on that because it's very frustrating to me to see these working conditions, which, as you say, have always been there, and then to see bailouts go to them to the tune of $16 billion. And I'm wondering, are you at all in talks, and you, again, may not be able to tell me this, I will ask, and you can see, are you at all in talks with the U.S. government about some subsidies coming towards Beyond Meat specifically, or plant-based alternatives?
Well, we have not accepted subsidies for our particular business. But it is frustrating when you talk about the diet and the need to eat more plant-based foods, yet subsidize. The subsidies don't always match that. We know that a lot of that, we know what causes that. But at the end of the day, we can only operate what we can do, and we'll continue to move forward, taking costs out of our system, reducing costs, and working. And a lot of the retail partners are working with us as well because they're seeing shortages. And I was in a Costco near my house recently, and they had actually filled not the entire, but a large part of the meat case with Beyond Meat. So it was interesting to see that, and simply because they didn't have anything to put there. So,
well, I'm wondering, maybe we can talk about that too. I find it so interesting. So are you forging, I'll say, better, stronger, more reliant relationships with grocery stores? They must see you as sort of their savior for, coming in a pinch during meat shortages.
Yeah, I got a call. I won't name the retailer, but I got a call from a large retailer, national retailer, and their senior vice president called me, and he asked me two questions. He said, "How's the business doing overall, plant-based meats in supermarkets?" And I explained to him that they were running well over 200% growth over the last 8 weeks, so they're doing quite well, thank you. And he said, "My next question is, do you have inventory?" And I said, "We do." So if you need the inventory, and then within 2 hours, we got our customer team got calls from buyers from out the country saying, "How much can you give us?" So we have not had shortages, and we are filling some of that gap as needed to these retailers. We have always had good relationship with the retailers. We've been a good item for them. We're the fastest growing item in these stores. We now have the 4 best selling items in plant-based meats in the retail stores today. So we've opened up a new category for them by going into the meat department. So that's now becoming a much bigger player. A lot of competitors come in here, but initially it was just us. So, they now see that as a real growth opportunity within the grocery stores and within the meat department. So,
yes, it's such a very exciting time. I predict that the meat aisle will not be called the meat aisle, but it will be called the protein aisle because of what Beyond Meat has done. Again, it's such a very exciting time, and I'm happy to hear that these relationships are getting stronger and stronger, and that they're recognizing that this is really good. I speak of the grocery stores, that this is really good business for them. I am sort of surprised, though, that large-scale meat companies aren't going deeper, faster, stronger into plant-based meat alternatives. I mean, they're obviously struggling. Their factories are shutting down. They know that the environmental resources aren't there. I'm just amazed that you're not seeing more competition beyond a little bit here and there from Smithfield and some other, and Nestle, Sweet Earth, but you're not seeing as much as I would expect. Why is that?
Well, I don't. I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. I think all the major meat companies are, all of them, all the major ones at least, are already entering the space. Um,
I would have thought more though. I know they're in there, but I would have thought they would have been more and bigger.
yeah. Well, I mean, again, they're probably learning too as well. There's only so many players that are going to be able to merchandise there. The space is not unlimited. But there are more players coming, and all the major meat companies do have at least one offering or multiple offerings in there. It's a sign of the times, and the reality is the world is changing. I do think COVID is sending real signals to people that you need to rethink about your diet and how important it is, not only to yourself but to the environment and to the people who work in these factories. So I do think that there's a lot of that conversation happening right now, and a lot of consideration, particularly among younger consumers, about what difference that they can make and how they can make that difference. You make it, and I've heard you say this on previous podcasts, you make it by in many ways in how you eat, what you choose to eat. You can make a difference. And again, I think we're in a very good place right now. There will be lots of competition. There'll be a place for more competitors. We know that, and it's very good for the category. We want to win, of course, and we'll compete to win. We do have a lead for we are really the ones who create this space in retail in particular. Many competitors are coming, but we're ready.
Yeah, there's so much equity in being first, and you really did that in retail. And for all the people who are watching, I just am going to name a couple names: Michelle Alfano, Roxy Velez, Patty, Pitti, Ramos, Tom Vincel, Anita Virma. We are all grateful for what Beyond Meat is doing and how it's changing the world and the business conversations we're having around it. Again, I'll also give a shout out to, I said this before, but I just kind of want to re-say it. You've done such a wonderful job during COVID-19 of not just supplying grocery stores when there's been shortages, but also coming up with donations for frontline workers in New York City, but also North Carolina with Kentucky Fried Chicken and athlete Chris Paul. So really thank you for doing that. And at the same time, it's great that you are keeping your brand out there, not just as a plant-based alternative for the environment, but also that you're there as a player in the community. And I think it's very important to do that. And you guys have done a great job of that. So just a shout out to you. Okay, well, so much of being a front runner is innovation. And I'll throw up a couple fun pictures here. I've interviewed Ethan Brown a bunch of times, and one for NPR, but also for this show previously. And Ethan Brown, there he is. He's cooking up sausages in my kitchen. He did this before Beyond Meat sausages actually launched. He came to my kitchen and cooked them, and we had a nice long conversation about innovation. So as you said, your sausages have just been reinvented, if you will. I mean, you're always bettering everything you do. You had Beyond Meat Burger, then you had Beyond Meat 2, and now you've had the further iterations of the sausage. When will we see things like Beyond Meat Pork and Beyond Meat Steak?
I don't have Beyond Meat Pork is coming soon, so that's something that's in work right now. Steak, we're if you can imagine an animal meat product, we're working on it. I mean, there's nothing that we're leaving behind. It's just a matter of prioritizing which you come out with next so you do it right. And so we just launched our breakfast sausage recently at retail and in food service accounts, as you know, through Dunkin'.
Yes.
So we and also in Canada with A&W and Starbucks. So we have and then Carl's Jr. and Hardee's also have it. So we've got the fairly good availability on the breakfast sausage, but we will be working on particularly pork, chicken, and beef. Those are the three areas we're primarily focused on right now, and you'll see additional innovations coming in those categories.
Yeah, and it's important to mention, I think, we are currently going through an epidemic with African swine fever. So I know everyone's focused on the meat-borne pandemic that is coronavirus. Just a bit of information. That's not the only meat-borne pandemic we've ever experienced. There's Asian bird flu, mad cow disease, Ebola, other things. And if we don't change what we do, we will continue to experience them. But right now, raging through China is African swine fever, which, as I understand it, actually started in U.S. factory farms. And it has decimated pig availability. I don't even like to speak of the animals in that way, but it has decimated the pig supply, and pork prices are shooting up in China. So I can see that this would be a sign of the times that would be a priority for you.
Yeah, and China especially, because it is a big pork consuming and chicken consuming culture there throughout Asia, in fact. So, yeah, that's definitely a priority for us to make sure we're offering the foods that they enjoy, not the foods that we think they should enjoy.
Right. I love that, of course, culturally fitting in. So I have to ask a question from Chris West. It was on my list anyway. McDonald's, get with the program. Are you going to expect to see them having Beyond Meat in the future in the U.S.? If you can talk about it.
Yeah, I can't really. I can only say that we had a very successful test in Canada.
Yeah.
McDonald's is a very big company, and they work at a pace that is appropriate for their company and the way they operate. So I would just say stay tuned.
Okay, stay tuned. I like it. So we talk about all this growth and all these positive numbers and all this wonderful innovation and these production partners that you have now around the world in Holland and in China. What is holding you back? What is, if there is a glitch, not a glitch, but a tricky spot for you? Is it pea protein in the supply chain? Is it the time it takes to find those co-manufacturing partners? What do you feel like, oh gosh, if we nail this thing, we'll really go to the moon?
I do think international is going to be a big part of whatever growth we achieve long term. Of course, we're working with a lot of potential food service partners, but the international growth is really just beginning. We are now in 75 countries, but expanding that reach in those countries, building out production capabilities, bringing out sales capabilities and marketing capabilities in those in Europe as well as Asia and even Latin America and Africa. I mean, is going to be important for us as we go forward. So I would say I'm not as worried about. We have a really terrific supply chain team now. Our new COO came from Amazon, so he knows how to scale. We've added a number of really important and key associates in our organization. So our supply chain, knock on wood, but we haven't had any issues this year, significant issues. We feel like we got a pretty good handle on it right now. So I think, again, marketing to the rest of the world is going to be, and getting distribution around the rest of the world is going to be important.
Great. Thanks for that. I'm wondering if you have any tips for other vegan businesses, not necessarily even in the burger or meat area, just any kind of plant-based food, because going from a small business to really a powerful, large-scale business depends on scaling, and so many vegan businesses get stuck there. I'm wondering if you have any points of wisdom.
Yeah, well, a lot of Tylenol and maybe some alcohol occasionally. It's just we've been through that. Look, I mean, we've been through it. There's no easy way. In our case, we grew so quickly. It became a demand. We used to say we don't have a supply issue, we have a demand issue, and the demand just came faster. And I think we were initially able to respond to it. You get to a certain size where we're at right now, it gets a little easier, believe it or not, because you do have more capabilities and more resources. You can invest those resources. But early on, it was very challenging to keep up with frankly, the demand that we were seeing, which is unprecedented. Our growth is, we were a $60 million company in 2016. Last year, we finished just under 300 million. So it's hard to go from, and as you know, to almost 100 million in Q1. So it's hard to go from a very relatively small company to a really large company very quickly. So just a lot of perseverance, a lot of sweat, a lot of sleepless nights thinking about it, I guess, but you figure it out.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I like to ask some of these questions. Of course, your initial answer is going to be, well, plant-based, but if you could be more specific about what your predictions are for the future, and I'll say between years 3 and 5, how do you think the industry is going to change in that time frame?
3 to 5 years from today?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, obviously we're very bullish. I mean, we think that the category is just beginning to explode, and not just in the U.S. but around the world. But I'll talk about the U.S. for a minute. It wasn't a year ago where you could go to my local store, and I'm in L.A., and you might see one package of Beyond Meat on the shelf. If you went through today, you have a whole block, and it's not just Beyond Meat anymore. That's a change. I mean, you're seeing category growth that's just unbelievable. There's not a major QSR customer in the world that's not at least looking at the space right now seriously and thinking about how they want to partner and who they want to partner with. I think there's going to be phenomenal growth, accelerated growth even over the next 3 to 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and plant-based beyond just not just animal, but across the entire plant-based world, whether it's beverages or snacks or meat in our case.
So I didn't get a chance to look at the market right before it ended today, but I think at the end of yesterday, the stock price was around 132. So those of you who got in under 100 and took advantage of the Corona times, you are very, very smart. I agree with you. I see lots and lots of growth and kind of nonstop growth from here on out. Every once in a while, I'll read an analyst who says that they downgrade the stock. I won't name my bank, but my bank did the same. And I just think, wow, got to get off smoking crack, my friends, because you are so, so wrong. Okay. You have been, before Beyond Meat, you were with Coca-Cola.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if you have just sort of a general expression for us about what you wish you knew 10 years ago that you know now.
I think in my last position at Coke was actually their venturing group, so I got to work with a lot of the entrepreneurs. I think leaving the comfort of a large company like Coca-Cola and getting into that entrepreneurial space. I'm not an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur has to be willing to give up everything. I mean,
yes.
Bet it all. Not many people can do that, so I applaud all the entrepreneurs out there who are able to do that. I'm not one of them, unfortunately. I'm an operator. I think I have a much better appreciation today than I had 10 years ago for those entrepreneurs. I work very close with Seth Goldman at Coke, and then he's the one who actually, introduced me to Ethan Brown and encouraged me to come over. Those entrepreneurs are special people, all of them. Ethan, Seth, and Mark Rapola. Anybody who's out there is an entrepreneur. You are special in that sense, in that it takes a certain courage and a certain commitment and a certain perseverance to be able to be successful in what you're doing. So did I know that 10 years ago? Probably. I lived in a very comfort zone of Coca-Cola. It was easy, but I knew where my paycheck was coming every week. I had my 401k plan. But to give up all that, give up the safety strap and go out on your own and do an entrepreneur investment or start up a company is, I guess that is pretty special.
Yeah, you do have to be rather scrappy, and you're working 24/7. It is on top of your mind all the time. You're always trying to think of how it can be better, how you can do it faster, smarter, save money. There's no rest for the weary. It is a long marathon, and you really have to be in it for the long haul. I'm wondering if you have a bad day, and some people have been having a string of them now with coronavirus, if there's one phrase that you say to yourself to get yourself back in the game.
Yeah, I don't know. I usually go out for a walk. Honestly, that's what I do. When I'm having a really bad day, I try to find a block in my day, which is hard sometimes. And I just say, I'm just going to go for a walk and get away from this for a few minutes. Just shut off the phones and just decompress a little bit. It is stressful. It's stressful because we're in these COVID times. It's stressful personally, as we're all in this, stay at home situation, not being able to socialize, but also from a work perspective. I mean, the business is shifting, and it may be shifting forever. I mean, right. We have to like you mentioned earlier, you're constantly thinking about, what does this mean? What else do we have to think about? How is this going to differ down the road? And what do I need to do? Or what do we need to do as an organization, as a team, to react to that? So that consumes me all the time. Mm-hmm. And those conversations are happening all the time. We think we're adapting pretty well. We're fortunate that we actually had a very balanced business. I mean, being in retail and food service allowed us to shift our priorities and really double down on retail. And we've done that, and I think pretty successfully so far. But we wish that food service business would come back, because we miss it. We want it back. So it is starting to come back a little bit too, by the way.
Yes, but who knows in what shape it'll be. So that's why you've done a great job of just making sure you have all areas covered. So if one goes down, you've diversified. Basically, if one goes down, your whole ship doesn't sink with it. I do want to ask one question that I have been seeing more and more press about as the meat industry pushes back. And there's been this question about health food, and is it really healthier? And I wonder if you'd like to address that. I can certainly address it too.
We do get asked it a lot. And I say this, look, if you can live on a whole food diet entirely, I mean, that's amazing. I applaud you. You should do that. I think it's the right way to go. But for the mere mortals among us, like myself, I do eat mostly whole. I do a lot of whole foods. My son's a vegan. He's actually living with us right now. Working at Beyond Meat, incredible enough. And
keeping it in the family.
Yeah, I didn't hire him. Ethan did. I didn't hire him. But is that, if you can live on a whole food, you can stay to a whole food diet. I mean, I don't think we should be talking. You should be listening to everything we're saying. I think that for most people, having processed food is just part of, I crack, I laugh at you like whole food, but most of the foods they sell are processed foods. I mean, it's just part of comfort that makes us feel good about it. And so we're a transition food for many people. I think we're a food that makes you feel comfortable. It's better. Do I think it's better than animal meat? Yes, absolutely. We say it's processed, but what's it processed with? It's processed with all natural ingredients, no GMOs, no soy. And so it's that phenomenon. We are working on nutritionals. We know, we have less fat, we have less saturated fat, we have less calories, more iron, no cholesterol. We're working on lowering sodium. Like I mentioned earlier, our sausages, all of our pork sausages have lower sodium than their animal count. Now it's a low bar, but they're lower. And so it is a good transition food, I think. Anyway, that's kind of where I'm at.
So I'll add to that, and I get this from Dr. Kim Williams, who's the past president of the American College of Cardiology. He's also the current chief of the cardiology department at Rush Memorial Hospital in Chicago. And he says that, like you said, these are great transition products from Beyond Meat and also others, but really we're talking about Beyond Meat here today. These are great transition products because they don't have cholesterol, as you say. They do have a little bit of fiber, whereas, spoiler alert, meat has no fiber. It is impossible to have a healthy diet without fiber. We have these long intestines and the meat just sits there for 2 to 3 days. No fiber. It also doesn't have TMNAO, trimethylene N-oxide, which is something that our system doesn't like. It also doesn't have animal heme, which is also something negative for our system. And then it doesn't have antibiotics and hormones and these kinds of things. So do you want to eat it as the only food ever 24/7? No. But as part of a diet, it's definitely better than meat. And it's a great transition product as you're working your way out. So, and since we started this show with some statistics, we'll end it with some statistics. It's also better for the environment. So an independent study from the University of Michigan did compare a Beyond Meat burger with regular burgers, and it saves 99% on water, 93% on land, 90% of greenhouse gas emissions, and 40% of energy. So we end our interview today with lots more numbers. Congratulations on all your sales figures and the future. And thank you for all that you're doing.
Okay. Thank you, Elizabeth. Appreciate being on the show today.
Oh, hold on. Don't go going away so fast. The very last exit question. If you are running around, you don't have time for lunch, and you can't actually sit down for a Beyond Meat burger, what is your favorite snack?
Right. All fruit pops. Yeah.
All fruit pops?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Fruit pops.
I'll look into that.
Yeah. Or fruit. I eat a lot of cherries and stuff, so it's pretty good. Or great.
Yeah, so great on the run. It's the Plant-Based Business Hour. I want to thank Chuck Muth, who is the Chief Growth Officer at Beyond Meat. These are such exciting times. The Plant-Based Business Hour is with you every week, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. Pacific time, right here on Jane Unchained. Chuck, I really do appreciate your time today. Thanks for all you do.
Okay, thank you.
Bye, everyone. Sit tight, Chuck. Don't go away. Bye, everyone.